Welcome to the objective review of the movie Instant Family. In an objective review, I like to break the movie down into 6 categories and assign weights to them depending on the genre. And this genre is a little tricky. I'm just going to categorize it as a dramedy, a little cross between a comedy and a drama. But anyway, let's get into the story.
There's so many kids in foster care, and they're having an orientation.
Ellie, people who take in foster kids are really special.
And in the story, I assign a 20% weight. And the story follows a couple who wants to adopt a child in foster care, but instead of adopting one child, they end up adopting 3. There's a teenage girl who has an attitude and everything. There's 2 younger kids who are somewhat out of control sometimes. And I really enjoyed the story here. One thing, I have a soft spot in my heart with foster kids, volunteered with a lot of them. And the story does a good job of, I think, showing what they go through. It mentions their black bag that they send from house to house in foster care. And how some of them have been abused. It doesn't go too far into that, because if it did, it would be a full-on drama, and it just wouldn't at all go with the tone of this movie. I think a little bit of comedy and levity can go a long way to handling such a sensitive topic as foster care. And you really start to see how, these kids come in and these, parents, and how they kind of grow to love one another. Or sometimes grow to be combative against one another. Like, it's not an easy transition for a lot of these kids, and I think they did a good job doing that. And I think the moral of the story is that you have to open up your heart to love, and you have to open up your heart to receiving love, and that's very important. So for story, I give it an 8 out of 10. Next is on to emotion, where I assign a 30% weight.
But with some structure and love, you could make your house a home.
The first half of this movie is not all that emotional. Like, it's more kind of set up and comedic. But in the second half, I found it to be personally very emotional. I think I got choked up in a lot of parts. There's a lot of moments of how this family would come together, and that combativeness, and just accepting, like, no, I'm always gonna love you. Like, no matter what, I'm going to be there for you. Like, and I've known foster kids have that happen to them. I know, I've heard stories of foster parents not giving up on their kids, and adoptive parents not ever giving up. And like, it's hard, because these are sort of strangers that you are now a family. Like the title is Instant Family. But the movie got really emotional towards the end there, where I think there was a little bit of reconciliation going on. And yeah, so emotion, I had to give it a high grade of a 9.5 out of 10. Next is on to action. And
Do you like the Clippers?
Oh, I'm more of a Lakers fan.
Oh no! You hit me because I like the Clippers!
I think
dramedies assigned a 0% weight, but there's a little bit of action here and there. A lot of it is kind of slapstick humor, especially with the boy who is just clumsy and he always gets hurt. There's a little bit of a fight scene here, which I actually enjoyed. It was played for a little bit of laughs, but also just some seriousness there. But yeah, so for action though, I have to give it a 6 out of 10. Next is on to comedy.
All right, let me fix her, okay?
Thanks, Daddy.
I just got my first daddy. Oh, what?
You suck! I want some of that. Hey, honey, can I help you with anything?
No.
Is on to comedy. And in dramedies, I assign a 30% weight to comedy. And this movie doesn't have any laugh out loud moments for me. Like, there's nothing that memorable that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go back and watch that part. That part was hilarious. But it kept me chuckling all throughout. There was a couple of good laughs, but nothing that made me, no slapstick kind of, no slapping my thigh kind of laughter there. And there were some side characters that I just found really annoying. Like, the parents go to this group for other foster parents, and that group of characters was just really annoying, kind of cliche to me, and I wish they weren't. Like, I like the concept of the foster parents having a group to go to, but I didn't like the people in it. Except for the 2 ones who was like leading the foster program. I like their dynamic together, so that part was good. But for comedy, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Next is on to acting, where I assign a 10% weight in dramedies, and
We love you. Please just go away.
the acting in this movie is always pretty steady. Like, everyone does a good job for the most part. And there are a few moments where people do a great job, an amazing job. Mark Wahlberg is pretty much Mark Wahlberg in this movie. Every version Mark Wahlberg has ever played. And Rose Byrne plays Rose Byrne in these movies. And I like them both being those people. but they do get a chance to shine and really flex their acting capabilities. Standout performances, I think, is by Isabella Moner. I think she has the toughest assignment here. She has to juggle being a very sarcastic, heavy attitude young girl who's very combative with her parents, also dealing with being a mother to her 2 siblings, and that's an actual thing that happens. A lot of foster kids have to go through that, and she also has to open up her heart to these new parents of hers. I think she did a great job. So for acting, though, I give it an 8 out of 10. Next is on to directing.
Over 500,000 children are currently in foster care. The county puts these on because they can match a lot of kids and parents quickly.
And I assign 10% weight for directing. And directing this movie is pretty solid. I think the one issue I have with it is it has a hard time sometimes juggling being a comedy and being more of a drama. I think there are just some moments that it puts in some comedy that takes away from the drama. Like, the drama is so good in these moments, and then they just add a little bit of humor. I'm like, no, you shouldn't have done that. You should just kind of kept it there. You could have just really, hit that home with this message here. And so I think that was probably the worst part. But the directing was fine. The pacing was great. I've never looked at my watch. I was entertained all throughout. So for directing, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. And that brings us to our weighted average score of an 8.3 out of 10. I really enjoyed this movie. I'll definitely see it again. I think it has a great message, and I think everyone should see it. I think the whole family should see it. It does have some curse words in it, but whatever. What doesn't have curse words in it? All right, I'd like to know your review, and I'm out.